Back in the day, before streaming, before CDs, we listened to music on albums. A vinyl disc spinning 33 and a third revolutions per minute brought us great music one side at a time. 20 or so minutes of music, 4 or 5 songs usually, that created a single listening experience. This format exposed us to other songs of the artist, not just the hits, and often flowed in an order that was created to build and maintain or mold a musical experience for the listener.
Sideshow brings musical experiences from the past to life today. Here, we discuss and review individual sides of record albums we have grown to appreciate and hope you will too. Welcome to The Sideshow. All right, welcome to The Sideshow. For this episode, Mark is going to be taking charge. So, Mark, why don't you tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
All right, today we are going to go with a really popular and successful album. It's Fleetwood Mac Rumors, and we're going to use side 2 of Fleetwood Mac Rumors. Both of these, the sides of this album, are really filled with hits. There's not a lot of just filler material on this album, period. There's just some interesting parts of side 2 that I'd like to focus on. Fleetwood Mac Rumors was a huge album, very popular. This is Grammy Album of the Year type material when it came out. But that was not always the case with Fleetwood Mac. They did not burst out of nowhere to become this instantly popular band. Rumors was actually their 10th album that they had come out with. Now, just prior to Rumors, they had an album called Fleetwood Mac, which, by the way, it was about their 3rd album called Fleetwood Mac. They'd been through a number of iterations and changes, but what we know today as the lineup of Fleetwood Mac was on the album right before Rumors. Fleetwood Mac came out, and this song this album had a number of hits: Over My Head, Say You Love Me, Rihanna, Landslide. It was a very successful album with a lot of hits and really set up kind of the expectations and the work that they did on Rumors. But I do want to quickly go back to, with a little bit about the background. They've been through so many different lineups and put out so many albums beforehand. We won't go really in depth into anything, but they had been around. They formed in London actually in 1967. Now, ultimately, by the time they became very popular and people know them, they were in California based band, but they started out in London and really formed by the brainchild behind the band was a man named Peter Green, who had done a lot of work with a lot of musicians. We could focus and show entirely on the different bands that this person had worked with, but it was a pretty impressive crowd with the likes of Eric Clapton and Mick Taylor from the Rolling Stones, and Frank Mick Fleetwood and some other members of Fleetwood Mac as well. But he was very well known and very kind of respected in the musical scene in London and in England at this time at the late 60s.
Well, and before Fleetwood Mac formed in 1967, the bass player who remained with Fleetwood Mac throughout the entirety, John McVie, the Mac of, and Mick Fleetwood was the drummer and John McVie was the bass player. In between the Yardbirds and Cream, Eric Clapton played with a band called John Mayall's Blues Breakers, and the whole Clapton is God mythology came about when Eric Clapton was playing with John Mayall's Blues Breakers. And the Blues Breakers album that featured Eric Clapton, John McVie was the bass player.
Yeah.
It was John Mayall, Huey Flint, John McVie, and Eric Clapton. And so, and Peter Green was part of that whole, hardcore
That scene,
blues
yeah.
scene.
So they got and the Mick Fleetwood with Peter Green got Mick Fleetwood and John McVie. So there's your Fleetwood and Mac of the band, as Mike talked about, and some some other people were brought in originally. There was early members like Jeremy Spencer and Danny Kerwin and Bob Welch, who became popular in his own right in the 70s doing pop music, and a lot of other people moving in and out of the band. And they put out a number of singles and albums. They did a combination of some tours in the United States and things. They never really got significant traction, even though there's some music from some of these earlier albums that are recognizable tunes that people will know. But they started out as a really very blues band. In fact, they on one of their U.S. tours, they stopped in Chicago and at Chess Records, which we're talking, Buddy Guy and this type of stuff. They
Oh,
did
it's
some,
Muddy Waters, Howlin'
yeah,
Wolf,
yes,
Bo Diddley. All those guys recorded for Chess. Willie
and
Dixon.
and they did, and with some of those key players, did a bunch of sessions there. They came out with enough for two different albums of just jam sessions, basically in Chicago. Very just straight old school blues that they did, and kind of moving back and forth, starting with that, but from an ability to be commercially successful, it was pretty clear they were going to have to move to some more accessible type music, and that did not come easy to them either. They did, John McVie was married to Christine Perfect was her name. She became Christine McVie, but she was had some success as a singer. In fact, Melody Maker magazine in England had named her the Female Artist of the Year for 1969 and 1970. So she had some chops, and she ended up coming in to work with the band to try to provide more of an accessible pop sound. She started kind of in the background as more of a session performer, but then became a formal member of the band. Continued to move through some iterations of musical styles and some different musical members coming in. Peter Green ended up leaving the band. He ended up having some mental problems that are rumored to be from a bad acid trip when he was in Munich while they were touring there, and he started to have some stability problems and ended up moving out of the band. And then, as we start to get into the mid 70s and in the era that we're starting to talk about, the band brought in Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, who had kind of been a duo, making some music together before they became members of Fleetwood Mac in the mid 70s. And this became the lineup that we know today think of today as Fleetwood Mac.
Well, and I believe that Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks recorded an album. I know they recorded an album, and I believe it was before this, called Buckingham Nicks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never heard the album, or at least I'm not aware that I've ever heard any of the material. But the way you describe the history leading up to this point is, there's really not much to add there. I guess,
Mm-hmm.
Let me rephrase that. There's tons of additional information that could be added, but the point is that this was a new collection of band members.
Mm-hmm.
Mick Fleetwood and John McVie were still there from
Yep.
the original band from 1967, and they're the two that gave the band its name.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, there was really no similarity. Certainly not to the original blues band from 1967, and this was really a new a new collection of people. It was going to be a whole new ball game in terms of what this band sounded like, and both Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, they wrote songs.
Yeah.
And so, Mick Fleetwood and John McVie are just songwriters. That's not what that wasn't their role in the band. They were the rhythm
Yeah.
section.
Yep.
And so it really was a whole new band. And that's not to say that there were no connections or similarities to anything that they had done before, but it was a whole new band. It really was. And you not only had two women that were now members of what had originally been an all-male sort of blues band, but you had a married couple, and I don't believe Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks were ever married, but they were a couple.
Yes.
And then Mick Fleetwood's kind of the Ringo of the band in some ways,
Yes.
and it was the sort of group when you'd see pictures of the band, this current lineup of the band, it's almost like you thought, oh, they probably have some pad that they all live in together in California, and almost like, even though Fleetwood Mac kind of could be characterized as a band that really didn't have any history in the 60s, that they were definitely a 70s band.
Yes.
In this configuration, but there was a certain sort of hippie communal vibe when you'd see the five of them in a picture or like a video clip or something like that. It was a unique new development for Fleetwood Mac, and the eponymously titled Fleetwood Mac album with this lineup, and then Rumors. Both of those albums, they both came out when we were in junior high.
Yeah.
And they were both big.
Yes.
They were big.
Yes.
And Rumors ended up being much bigger than the album that preceded it. But they came together at a moment when a collection of people like the members of this lineup of the band was kind of representative of kind of a non-existent ideal that a lot of people saw existing in the sunny climes of California.
Yeah.
And were able to capitalize on all that.
Well, and I would agree exactly. And if you listen to a lot of Fleetwood Mac music, and the early Fleetwood Mac music, we're talking about those two albums, right? Fleetwood Mac and then Rumors. And there is this, there's a lighthearted California type spirit, kind of this, yes, the great new happiness that we can experience when, talk about non-existent. It certainly wasn't existent within Fleetwood Mac, right? I think that every single possible partner combination of the members of the band, ended up becoming couples, and with, other people associated with the band, the personal lives of the band members became an incredible mess with personal relationships, and the McVies got divorced, and then you started, Mick Fleetwood's wife ended up having an affair with his best friend, and they broke up, and then Mick Fleetwood and Stevie Nicks, everybody ended up sleeping with everybody, and it created all types of problems and tension. On top of that, the success of the Fleetwood Mac album right before Rumors, they'd been waiting a long time. This band, the core of this band, again, this was their 9th album. They'd been at this now for a long time, struggling to get any real traction, struggling to have any success. And suddenly, boom, this combination bringing in Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, the way that Christine McVie and Stevie Nicks, their vocals worked with each other was just magic for this particular time and what people wanted to listen to. It worked. And the harmonization of the males in the band from a vocal perspective and their ability to write popular songs, right? To crank this stuff out was just made perfect for this moment in music history, this mid 70s time. So boom, suddenly now they've got a lot of money, and all of the stuff that comes along with that, this life in the fast lane type stuff, came right down on this band. They lived in it, they swam in it, and they also took this leverage that they had and said, we're gonna crank out another album, and it's gonna be a like a greatest hits album with new material, no filler. Every single song they intended to be able to be released as a single. They had the money to put the production crews and this type of thing into it, and they were intent on doing it. It took them longer than they thought. They had a lot of problems, and a lot fueled by personal problems, drug and alcohol excesses while they were trying to do this. It went over time, over budget, but they were committed to doing it. They had a sold out fall tour across the U.S. that they ended up canceling so they could finish this album. They really were serious about wanting to do it. They weren't necessarily as serious on how they could accomplish it. Again, a lot of personal problems, a lot of drug and alcohol related problems that they were going through. The production crews in the studio still tell stories of how difficult some of these sessions were, because they'd be basically all night parties, but were able to accomplish getting some, again, very successful and popular songs down on vinyl.
Well, and that sounds, when you think about that sounds so extreme, to cancel a sold out tour, for a number of reasons. Just disappointing your fans, the financial and logistical disruptions that would be created, and just that's an opportunity. I mean, to go out and present yourself to the public, but getting the recording down and getting it done right. I mean, this is a recording that is one of the more substantial single album accomplishments of the classic rock years. I mean, it really is. Whether however much one likes Fleetwood Mac or how high they are on the totem pole of what one likes in terms of classic rock artists, there is no question that this album is just a major classic in from the classic rock era, from the 70s, and it's down. They got it down.
They did.
And so this album, the tour. A lot of people that went to those shows would say, geez, I was so fucked up at that show, I can't even remember half the songs they played.
Yeah.
You can still listen to every song on this album anytime you want to.
Yes.
I mean, I've got the CD. I can go put it in whenever I want to. You can get it on Spotify or YouTube or whatever. So, when you stop and think and actually look back, it was a great thing that they said, no, we cannot not finish this work. We cannot let this album fall apart. We got to get it down, and that probably has something to do with how classic it turned out to be when they did in fact finish it.
And it was huge. Not only commercially successful, it sold over 40 million copies worldwide. I mean, it's just huge sales. The eighth best-selling album of all time. I mean, you're up there with the heavy hitters now when you're looking at albums. And we're about to dig into this just real quickly. They followed it up with 3 more albums that just were, as most bands will experience, when you really hit that home run, we're not able to get back up to the point. They had some success. The album Tusk which came out in 1979, had some hits on it, Tusk and the song Sarah. The people like Stevie Nicks were able to go out and have some successful solo projects. In 1981, Stevie Nicks came out with Belladonna, which was a very successful album, and launched her ability to drive solo success. They had an album in 1982 called Mirage, which wasn't quite as successful, and the band was really starting to struggle now with the weight of the fast lane living that they had. I mean, by this time, Mick Fleetwood was in bankruptcy. Stevie Nicks was in the Betty Ford clinic. It was tough times for the band, but they were committed that this Mirage would not be the last thing that they did. And they in 1987 they came out with an album, Tango in the Night, that had a number of hits as well, and that really became the end of this the era of this particular lineup of the band. They continued to do some other things after that, and some reunion tours and whatever. But the Fleetwood Mac that we think of really came to an end there. But let's go back to Rumors, because that's what we're gonna talk about here. Again, it was released in 1977, recorded through 1976 in Sausalito, California. The recording engineer described the process as excess at its most excessive. So these again difficult to work with. The band was in the midst of everybody being with everybody, breaking up with everybody, relationship problems, financial and legal problems kind of propping up even with this money, and excessive drug and alcohol use. And it really shows through, especially damaged relationship shows up as a huge theme on the songs that we're going to hear from side two of the album. A lot of emotion and a lot of conflict behind the release of this album, and their ability to capture it is what made this so successful, especially at a time when there was a number of members of the band that were not speaking to each other outside of the studio. They could only yet they were willing to work with each other in the studio, and that probably goes a lot to the management and the studio people working with them to facilitate that process. But either way, it came out pretty well. So let's take a look at the album itself real quickly. Pretty basic and classic cover. And the back has, I think these are the types of images you were talking about, Mike, a little bit earlier. This whole notion of this, almost a commune type environment. I mean, when you say the Ringo Starr of the band, I mean, Mick Fleetwood, did everything he to be the weirdo in the crowd. I actually saw them and then on the inside there was actually some art that came along. It was just a standard Warner Brothers sleeve insert, but they came along with some art, with some photos and that type of thing of the sessions when they were working on it. I had the opportunity to see Fleetwood Mac not until 2019, which was on one of their reunion tours. They still brought it. And Mick Fleetwood really showed himself as just a great entertainer, a lot of energy, and the band was still able to perform their songs well, and they played a lot from this album and from this side. The first song on the on side two is called "The Chain," and this is one that, going back to, I can remember when I very first heard this song. It had a unique sound and feel to it. It opens up with kind of this kind of groovy, almost a harem type feel, or some tent somewhere. I mean, back in high school when we used to think that nothing would be better than just like laying in some tent in Turkey smoking hash all day, right? Just resting on pillows while pretty women walked around and you're listening to good music on a good. That's what this song kind of starts out sounding like. It's just a weird environment, calm, but there's a really just kind of strange feel to the song to it. And this was really the only song that the entire band collaborated on. And it's not that they all sat down and said, let's make a song. They each had brought different things that they had either worked on previously, or, you know, John McVie had this bass line that really becomes prevalent in, towards the end of the song. And Stevie Nicks had the lyrics. And they just kind of sat down. They all had these different components, and they put it together in this song. And it is, you know, you can see and feel in the way that they're singing and just understanding what was going on with this band, is this was the end of a relationship. This was, things have held us together, probably held us together longer than we should have been together. And whether it was marriage or the love that we had, these were the chains that were keeping them together. And those chains had either broken or come undone for a lot of reasons. They talk about things like running in the shadows, which can be, infidelities, or cheating, and the lies that go along. And there's an anger as they sing. The song starts out, again, you're hearing this kind of very almost funky, just strange, foreign kind of sound, relaxing kind of sound. But it starts with, listen to the wind blow, watch the sunrise. And maybe been up all night, you're watching the sunrise, run in the shadows, which is a theme that comes throughout the songs. Damn your love, damn your lies. And when they are singing it, the emotion is there. This is not something that gets slipped over. It's just, damn your love, damn your lies. And it's a lot of emotion in this song.
I like the way you've characterized the beginning of the song. I guess one thing I'd add is the beginning of the song. I mean, it's very acoustic. Mm-hmm. It's very slow. And while it's more exotic than this, it always gave me sort of more of a backwoods rural feel. Now, like I say, it's a little more exotic than that. So I guess I understand what you mean, when you describe, kind of like the Turkish harem. But it's a bleak. There is a bleakness to it that is. It's like something's missing here.
Yeah.
It's like a cold wind is going to start blowing.
Yes.
Sort of feel to it. And the damn your love, damn your lies. It's you hear it.
Yeah.
I mean that they are those lyrics are sung with purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it clearly what they were feeling. And it wasn't as much when I saw them perform. I understand, and there's videos of them performing a little bit closer to when this was happening. When I saw them, this is now, decades after some of the anger and whatever would have probably settled into the past. But at the time when they would, they'd be singing in harmony to each other, you could feel it and see it in the performance when they would do this live, that they would almost be shouting and arguing at each other. And that's just bringing out, again, visually, the emotion that's in the song. And you hear and feel the same thing when you're listening to the record. You certainly don't need to see anything there. There's really only a couple of, really short verses. And, the chorus is, and if you don't love me now, you'll never love me again. Kind of like, look, if it's over, it's over. And I can still hear you saying you would never break the chain. Kind of, you promised this wouldn't happen. Or we're going to, love each other till death do us part, whether it's a marriage or relationship or whatever, that, you promised you wouldn't break the chain. And, just by implication, it sounds like they have done that. And they go back into, another very short verse. And then the chorus comes right back again. And if you don't love me now, you'll never love me again. It picks up. You can feel more, kind of volume and more emotion in the song. And as we get through get through two verses and chorus. This is kind of the song really kind of bridges to something, I guess, like the final third of the song is kind of a run out where they're just, there's this repetitive chains will keep us together running in the shadows. Chains keep us together running in the shadows. And, really just we were held together, but this cheating, whether it be the lying or the infidelity or the lack of trust, whatever it was, this whole notion of running in the shadows was always there. Chains keep us together. This goes back and forth as the song moves out. Kind of transitions in style in this final third as it runs out.
Well, the bass line that McVie came up with that you mentioned earlier comes in, and in the song up to that point, there's been this sort of bleak, very acoustic, very sparse, musical accompaniment. And, during the, if you don't love me now, you will never love me again, the more instruments kick in, but then it goes back to that sparser, more acoustic accompaniment. And then when McVie comes in with this bass line, the doom, 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 doom. Well, and then the band kicks in, and I mean, Lindsey Buckingham rips off a smoking guitar solo.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it is. I mean, and when you talk about big time electric guitar rock guitarists, you don't necessarily think of Lindsey Buckingham, but
Yeah.
but I mean, that was a smoking. I mean, that's a good guitar, very potent, powerful lead guitar.
Yes, and it really it builds up to a point where it really works, right? It sometimes you hear some guitar, especially at the end of a song, where it's okay. Let's plug this in here, right? The obligatory get some guitar in here too. It works so well,
Yeah.
especially considering the way that this starts out. You talked about it's this acoustic kind of start to the whole process, and it ends much stronger again with just more emotion, more feeling. So really kind of this is not it's a very unique song. The style of the song is unique. It's not like anything else of Fleetwood Mac's. It's unique to a lot of the music in this whole 70s classic or album oriented rock that you want to talk about. It's a very unique song. It's very identifiable. As soon as it starts to play on the radio, this song is there, and it's a great way to start the side.
Yeah, and just to kind of finish up the guitar solo, it sort of captures the tension of the conflict between the chain keep us together and then running in the shadows. I mean, there's this. Yeah. It's like we want this to work, but it ain't working, and that tension is sort of it is reflected in the lead guitar before the end of the song, and the kind of the intensity of their singing. Those let chain keep us together. It's a great song, and the fact, and you pointed this out, it's the only song on the album that is credited to all 5 band members. And I think
interesting that all 5 band members were basically in the midst or had recently experienced a bad breakup. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's
and the chain that keeps us together can be looked at as potentially referring to relationships between individual members of the band, like intimate relationships between individual members of the band, and the band as a whole staying together.
Yes. Yes.
So it's a great song. I agree that it's a unique song, both in the context of Fleetwood Mac and in the larger context of the, this part of the 70s, and certainly a great start to a side.
And then we transition then from the chain to the second side and completely shift gears. as we move to the second song. First thing is that the next song is "You Make Loving Fun," and a this is a standard Fleetwood Mac song. It has got a fun feel to it. It has got a this particular one is Christine McVie, but the female vocals that really maneuver. They're not. This isn't like something that you consider just to be like reading text, as sometimes vocals, especially for sometimes some types of artists, can be. Really, you get a range of tone in the vocals. I won't try to replicate it here, but it's the vocals here on this song are beautifully done. This is about this wonderful feeling that you have at the beginning of a relationship. This feeling of there's joy. I never did believe in miracles, but I have a feeling it's time to try. I mean, there is hope and optimism. It is clearly directed at a person. This isn't like, okay, I finally got my own apartment, and this is a person. That word on the street is that this is as Christine McVie was exiting her marriage. She had a fling with the lighting director for the band, and she wrote this thinking about him. Doesn't matter. It is again really shifting gears from a bad breakup to the wonderful start of a relationship, and it's a positive. It's a fun song to listen to. Again, Fleetwood Mac had a lot of this type of music during this time period, and this was certainly one of them. And again, really kind of shifts to a fresh and fun relationship. It's also got some instruments. It uses a clavinet keyboard, a little bit different sound very different sound from the Chain, but kind of just differentiates it from some of the other more popular songs that they've got.
Well, I think this is one of Fleetwood Mac's better songs, and just instrumentally, the beginning of the you hear four. I believe it's three or four taps on the hi-hat, and then the song starts in with the drums, bass, and then the clavinet, the keyboards that Christine McVie is playing. And the song, it's not a particularly fast song. It's not a dance song.
Yeah.
But it has a propulsive rhythm that is just cool. And Mick Fleetwood and John McVie were an excellent rhythm section, drums and bass. I mean, putting down just a supple, engaging rhythm. And then and I believe it is Christine McVie that's playing that kind of synthesized keyboards there.
Yeah. I
mean, this song, you're chugling before she starts singing.
Yeah.
And that is basically maintained throughout the song. And regarding the lyrics and the singing, when you look back at pictures of the band back in the late 70s, if there was kind of a sex symbol in the band, it would have been, most people would say that Stevie Nicks was occupied that role.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at Christine McVie and you hear her sing, I think both her appearance and the way she sings is just got a more sultry potency to it.
Yeah.
In a lot of, or at least in this song, there's no question. And let's face it. I mean, when this song was still big and popular, you and I were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear her sing "Sweet Wonderful You Make Me Happy with the Things That You Do," I mean, that's what a guy like us want. That's how we wanted a girl to feel about us.
Any girl.
If any girl would think that way about me, that would be great.
Yes.
And I mean, it's a great song, and it's totally different than than the opener. I mean, because it really is. It's that feeling that you have when you first realize that you've fallen for someone.
And it's
And
and it's really going well, right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the all those possibilities are there. And so this it is a different feel continuation. It's still a relationship song, obviously the exact opposite, looking at relationships from the exact opposite ends from what we just heard. Now we continue on to the third song, and it's called I Don't Want to Know. And this is also more in the line of like what we would call a Fleetwood Mac song, right? You know, it just the same kind of a rolling kind of feel. That bass section, I mean, you can tell these guys, Mick Fleetwood and John McVie, had been playing blues
yeah.
together for years. I mean, they were tight as a rhythm section. So I agree, Mike, 100%. There was some power there that was a unique skill of them, and came through in their music. And then when you added on kind of the way that the vocals played together, this was actually written by Buckingham and Nix before they'd come to Fleetwood Mac. So this is where that came on. And this was you can look at this a number of different ways. I really see this as a relationship that's coming to an end in I guess a good way. Not overly happy. It's like I don't want to know the reasons why love keeps right on walking down the line. We've got love and it walks away, and I don't even care why. It keeps happening, and so it's clearly that something is love has walking down the line again. But there's a lot of allusions to that. I want this to be good, right, honey? I just want you to feel fine. There's not the same type of anger that you heard in The Chain. This is not drumming on about all the negative things that happened or pointing fingers in the relationship. The song sounds positive and upbeat when you're listening to it, and as you actually think about the lyrics, it's not that it's not painful, right? There's there's things that they clearly wanted to happen that didn't. But the notion of I still care for you and I still want you to be happy, whether we're together or not, really comes through in the way that the song presents itself. It's a nice song right in the middle of this side.
The and uh, I I think it's a great song. It's a song that's hard not to tap your foot
Mm-hmm.
and kind of and it makes it you feel good listening to it. You don't feel bad. And I think the reason why this is, and you mentioned that this was something that was probably originally written before Buckingham and Nix came into the band, and some of these interpersonal and
Mm-hmm.
just personal issues started to arise with everybody involved that made things more conflicted and complex and angry to some extent. Here the relationship that you're right. It's either coming to an end, or at least one of the members thinks that it's
Yes,
that the singer is
the end
thinking
is
that
near.
the singer is thinking that her partner is going to be and I shouldn't say her, but
Yeah.
that their partner is going to be heading down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But just the gist of the song appears to be that, hey, you know, I'm glad that we were together for the time that we were, and I hope that after we parted that you're happy and that my memories of our time together will remain fond ones.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a very healthy, if we're not talking about a married couple with children or whatever, we're just talking about people who were lovers for a time
Mm-hmm.
and may have lived together and were emotionally committed to each other, but good, bad, or otherwise, one or the other has, gotten restless, and instead of bitterness, hatred, or anger, just okay.
Yeah.
I wish we could continue, but I wish you well, and I'm going to have good memories of our time together.
Hmm.
I mean, that is a relatively healthy way for someone to look at the situation. Once it gets to the point where it's becomes known to both that that's what's happening, it's really about the most healthy way you could approach it. The way that the verses that talk about finally, baby, the truth has come down now. Take a listen to your spirit. It's crying out loud, trying to believe. And then, oh, you say you love me, but you don't know. You got me rocking and a reeling.
Hmm.
It's sort of kind of just the emotional roller coaster that accompanies many, if not most, relationships, but that it doesn't have to be a bad thing
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um,
And
uh,
which I think was ended up being, again, this was written most likely before or at least started as, before a lot of the turmoil within the band. I think it ended up becoming wishful thinking because there were a lot of bad blood from a relationship perspective within the band, which is a shame. But, this song certainly wasn't looking at it that way. So we've started with a song about a bad breakup. We've moved to a song about a great new fresh relationship. We've now got a more positive kind of end to a relationship. And we then move to the fourth song, which is called Oh Daddy. This is a Christine McVie song. This is a great example what you were talking about, Mike, about Christine McVie. She had a way of, if you, especially visually, if you could watch her sing and as she sung, very just alluring, just a deeper kind of voice. Stevie Nicks had a very nice voice as well. A little, I'd call it more nasally, right, than Christine, but a very unique and very nice voice. Christine McVie, the way that she could just kind of have kind of a haunting kind of song as she was singing. And this song, it's called Oh Daddy. I do not believe that in any way has anything to do with like daddy issues or her father or whatever.
I
However, when you listen to the way she sings, and I can't do it, right? But it's just oh daddy. I mean, the way she says oh daddy makes you think that she might be talking about her father. Certainly someone she feels like. But there's a couple different kind of stories around this. I think the most widely spoke of one is actually talking about Mick Fleetwood, who was called Big Daddy by people in the band or people that worked with the band. But if you set that to the side, I hear this as someone who is sorry about how things may have gone in a relationship, and they're happy that this person has been so accommodating to their lacks or their failures, right? Oh daddy, you make me cry. How can you love me? I don't understand why. um it's like you're so kind to me, it makes me cry. Oh daddy, if I can make you see if there's been a fool around, it's got to be me. Kind of like I'm the the one that has been not really standing up here. Now, towards the end of the song, you get more of a sense that now this might be about Mick Fleetwood, more like him leading the band through some of this turmoil that they were experiencing and kind of being a rock to the people around, even though Mick Fleetwood himself began to dive in and be one of the sharks in the pool with some of these things. But there was a later interview where Christy McVie talked about the lines of, why are you right when I'm so wrong? Was more like Mick Fleetwood was always right, when they were in a discussion about who was going to do something, whatever Mick said, that's the way it went because he was always right. And so, a little bit of sarcasm was intended at the end, as opposed to someone who genuinely felt that they were the wrong person in a relationship. So I like to, when I'm listening to this song, take anything about the band away, and it's a nice, gentle, soft. It's got kind of a little bit of a haunting kind of feel to it, but about really someone just saying, "I'm sorry," is what I hear as I talk through this.
Well, I have a more jaundiced take on this song. I think that and I the things that you say, and something I was not aware of was the fact that Mick Fleetwood was referred to as Big Daddy, by the band and people that hung around the band. And so that was not a context. And obviously, if Christine McVie has spoken in interviews about, well, Mick was always right just because that's the way it was, that makes sense. I always regarded this as a song where this woman is emotionally dependent on a man, and the man knows it and takes advantage of it. I mean, the lyrics when she sings, "Oh, Daddy, you soothe me with your smile. You're letting me know you're the best thing in my life."
Mm-hmm.
I mean and why are you right when I'm so wrong? I'm so weak and you're so strong. Everything you do is just all right. If the lyrics were, "You soothe me with your smile, you're letting me know that I'm the best thing in your life," that would be different than "You're letting me know that you're the best thing in my
Yeah.
life."
I
And
I
and
hear what you're saying.
so I regard this as that the singer is does not want to lose this relationship, but has at least is able to articulate some awareness that maybe I should be rethinking this, and but that's how I take it. Because it's not an upbeat song,
No, I'd agree.
and and it doesn't have it's not like the last one where, yeah, we've got some problems, but it's going to be okay. Or I guess here's what I'm building up to. I guess I never took the impression from the lyrics that the singer really believes or accepts that it's all her fault. And
I hear what you're saying. I can totally see that. Where that, so I buy it. I buy it. It kind
well,
of one of those things where you if you sit and you go word for, first of all, I do not, but I do think that it's an influential. I agree that it's not I don't believe it's a father, right? I do think though that it is a someone who has influence, and maybe influence that they're misusing. I can hear what you're saying there.
well, and as time went by, I mean, you and I have been listening to this song for more than 40 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I first would hear this song on the radio back in junior high and high school, I mean, I wasn't thinking about emotionally dependent and exploitation, and I wasn't thinking about that shit. And there was, and so it the I guess one of the wonderful things about art, including music, is that as you take time to immerse yourself in songs and artists and albums and sides, you can revisit or refine or just revel in whatever interpretation you happen to take or have taken.
Mm-hmm.
And so there aren't right and wrong answers to these things, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it's a the song definitely creates a mood,
Oh yeah.
and it's a mood of either sorrow or recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say sorrow, I meant you like saying I'm sorry, or just I recognize here's what's going on, and or maybe someone singing to themselves thinking I got to take responsibility for myself, for crying out
Yeah.
loud, and
Yeah.
whoever. But it's not an it's a very it's a down it's not upbeat. It ain't an
No,
upbeat
and
song.
the on the same token, it's not I mean, there's songs that actually, kind of make you sad. This is, I consider it more like haunting almost the way that
Yeah.
and that part of that is Christine McVie's voice. She's got a great way of carrying her vocals, and let's put it this way. It's there's an emotion that is there. And I would agree with you. It is not Glee, right? That from that perspective, but it's a great. It we we've just transitioned through a couple different types of types of songs, and to come from I don't want to know again up to this one again, more again kind of more haunting. It's brought things down quite a bit. And we move from that to another song that is not certainly not a everybody jump up and dance song, but it's Gold Dust Woman, the last song on the side. This is a Stevie Nicks song that comes to pass, and the word on this song is that she wrote it about especially a young person coming to LA and some of the struggles and difficulty kind of making life in the big city, and some of the trappings and problems that can come up with that. I mean, the song starts with it's got this it starts with some guitar that is kind of a it's slow, but it's kind of poking at you the way the guitar starts out, and it's rock on gold dust woman, take your silver spoon and dig your grave. Now, that can be a silver spoon, can be what came in your mouth when you were born to a rich family, or it can be what you use cocaine with. Now, I'm looking at a lot of people in the LA scene that were digging their graves with a cocaine spoon, and thinking that's a little bit more aligned with some of the things that she was talking about. And this is just there's a song like "Life in the Fast Lane" by the Eagles that talks about a lot of the same things that some of the negative things that can come from in the fast lane, but they're looking at it from while you're moving fast and while you're supposedly enjoying things. This is from the exact other direction, right? Kind of you're looking, you're down already from this experience, and kind of looking back at some of these. This song is it's a sad sounding song. Did she make you cry, make you break down, shatter your illusions of love? Is it over now? Do you know how to pick up the pieces and go home? Clearly, somebody who has been somewhere not at home and now has to pick up the pieces and try to get back home. And do you even know how to do that, right? At this point, so just a very slow, sadder song that takes us out of this side.
Well, and I this song, and it has kind of a haunting instrumentation to it, sort of a little more elaborate than starts out the chain,
Yeah.
but has this, but it's kind of slow, and kind of has that backwoodsy rural
Yes.
feel to it on the one hand. But I think the Gold Dust Woman. I mean, I think Gold Digger is what is
Mm-hmm.
what is talked about there, or maybe groupie would
Mm-hmm.
be a better word. And the first lyric, rock on, Gold Dust Woman, take your silver spoon. The singer is singing to the Gold Dust Woman, but then in the next verse, wake up in the morning, see your sunrise, loves to go down. Lousy lovers pick their prey, but they never cry out loud.
Hmm.
Now, I think that I think that now the singer is singing to a man who she cares about or who may have previously been in a relationship but lost him to a groupie
Hmm.
or a gold digger. I mean, and wake up in the morning, see your sunrise, loves to go down. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we know what the singer is talking about.
Yeah.
So hard not to feel satisfied when you get to wake up every morning
Yeah.
to a happy ending and you've just
Hmm.
begun. But then did she make you cry, make you break down? Uh, uh, I think that's the singer singing to the man. So obviously Stevie Nicks is the singer singing to
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
man. So how'd that work out for you?
Hmm.
Um, uh, and so I guess and there's really not much to add as far as I'm concerned. But that's I think it's the goldust woman is a gold digger, and or a hangers on or a groupie type person, and that the influence of such people may have had something to do with some of the interpersonal uh, issues that arose between the band members.
Sure. No, I totally can see that, and like the way that fits into the way the song is laid out, and especially that notion that you talked about now that you're done with this little fling again, that how did that work out for you, and are you able to to pick up the pieces and go home. uh I um, I like the way this song is another one of the ones that it just has a unique feel to it. The chain, Oh Daddy, right before this, and Gold Dust Woman they're these slower, they're a more down type song. I've always thought of this album as like side one, right? Which has songs like Dreams and Never Go Back Again, Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow, Go Your Own Way. That's the song you play, that's the side you play at the party. Side two is what you play during the hangover, right? It is just a more it's got some it comes up for some of it to kind of get you moving, but it's a gentle kind of lower flowing kind of feel across the entire side. I think it fits really well together as a side of music. I think all five of the songs are good songs. They're interesting to listen to, and I think they fit so well together.
Well, and these all of the songs on this album, both sides, are songs that over the years you hear.
Yeah.
Some not as often. Like "Never Going Back Again"
Yeah.
or song. I mean,
Secondhand news you don't
uh,
necessarily hear a lot of, and yeah.
but you've heard them. They're
Yeah.
songs like it's not like oh, I mean, and when we before we do our podcast, I always listen to the sides that we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
and I mean, and this was like an old friend. And I was never a big Fleetwood Mac fan, and this was never an album. I mean, I have a vinyl version of this, I've got a CD version of this, and I would listen to it here and there. But this isn't something that was ever in really heavy rotation
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
far as listening to the albums. But because you heard it so often on the radio and whatnot, just all these songs have had an opportunity to just permeate my musical consciousness over the decades.
Mm-hmm.
And when I sat down to listen to this side in preparation for doing the podcast, it was just it was like I was right back in tune with all these songs very
Mm-hmm.
quickly.
Yeah.
And it's it's an example of what really is a major classic album, and I agree with you, a an excellent side of music.
Well, a great side, great conversation, Mike, about it, and another example of how listening to sides can be an experience in and of itself. So that was Fleetwood Mac Rumors Side 2.
It's a good one. All right, we will see you, Mark, next time.